Hi everyone, and welcome back to A Story of Light, a live stream musical journey in 19 days. Today is day 8, and if this is your first time watching, you're very welcome. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Luke Slott. I'm a musician in Dublin, and I mainly focus on setting to music the Baha'i sacred writings. And from the 1st to the 19th of March this year, I'm doing this series of daily live streams here at AP Studios in Dublin in preparation for the release of my new album, Home of Light, which is coming out later this year and which is a collection of new songs based on the writings of Abdul Baha. And if you're not familiar with Abdul Baha, he was the son of Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Baha'i faith, and he's really cherished as an example and a role model to Baha'is and friends around the world. And 2021 marks the centenary of his passing, so hence the new album this year in his honor. So if you're watching for the first time, you'll find all the previous episodes linked in the description below, so you can catch up on the story in your own time, anytime you like. And all the live streams will be posted on YouTube for people to watch later. So yeah, feel free to share them with your friends if you think they'd like to hear the story too. So today is the 8th day of the annual Baha'i fast, and this is episode 8 of A Story of Light. So yesterday we had looked at this period of Baha'u'llah's disappearance to the remote mountains of Kurdistan, and we looked at how he had really magnetized the whole region, and particularly the town of Sulaymaniyah, with this atmosphere of love and wisdom. But back in Baghdad, when a now 12-year-old Abdul Baha heard of this mysterious mountain sage who was having this extraordinary effect on the people of that region, he knew that this must be Baha'u'llah, and he arranged for a family friend to go to Sulaymaniyah and to bring his father home. And so in the year 1856, Baha'u'llah returned to Baghdad, and even though his fellow Babis were still very much in a state of great confusion, the purpose of his disappearance had been achieved. His brother Mirza Yahya's attempts to turn the Babis against Baha'u'llah and make himself their leader had failed miserably, and really most of the Babis were pretty embarrassed that they had ever listened to Mirza Yahya at all. And in fact, even Mirza Yahya was actually glad to have his brother back, because what the Babis needed more than anything was leadership, and they all knew that the only one truly capable of leading them forward was Baha'u'llah. And so on his return, Baha'u'llah took up the reins of the Babi community, and really like the captain of a ship lost at sea, he began sailing that ship through the storms and steering it back on course to its destination. And there was a whole new kind of energy and a new joy that was infused into the community, and especially into his own family on his return. And this was only enhanced by the fact that Baha'u'llah and Nawab's youngest son, Mirza Mihdi, who had actually had to be left behind with his grandmother back in Tehran when the family was banished from Persia because the journey would have just been too dangerous for a little baby. Mirza Mihdi was now a few years older, and he was brought to Baghdad to join the family there. And so with the family reunited, there was this new joy about them. And Baha'u'llah and Nawab opened up the doors of their house, and in their simple home in Baghdad, they re-established that atmosphere of hospitality and open-heartedness that had been such a refuge to the people of Tehran, where years earlier they had become known in their city as the father of the poor and the mother of consolation. And just as he had done for the people of Sulaymaniyah, Baha'u'llah quickly became this beacon of light for the people of Baghdad, the people in the city happy to have him back, and increasingly attracted by this kind of atmosphere of serenity that seemed to surround him, began coming to the house and visiting with him, and they would sit and they would talk with him, and he would help the people to figure out solutions to the various problems and perplexities that they were facing in their lives. And everyone who visited him described how, in spite of this kind of this majesty that seemed to emanate from him, he wandered into his presence at ease. Sometimes through a little bit of humor, sometimes simply through his attitude of hospitality, he would put them at ease in such a way that he would lift up their perspectives above all the agitations and distractions of daily life, in such a way that they would then be able to see their own selves and their circumstances with more clarity. And through their interactions with Baha'u'llah and the insights that he would offer to them, the solutions that they needed would emerge organically. And Shoghi Effendi gives us this beautiful description of the kinds of things that Baha'u'llah was teaching people on his return to Baghdad. And I thought I'd share this with you today. So Antimo, can you just put up the first slide, please? The emphasis placed on the principle of non-violence, the stress laid on godliness, kindliness, humility and piety, on honesty and truthfulness, chastity and fidelity, on justice, toleration, sociability, amity and concord, on the acquisition of arts and sciences, on self-sacrifice and detachment, on patience, steadfastness and resignation to the will of God. When these fundamentals were established in the hearts of this people, they everywhere acted in such wise that they became famous for the integrity of their character, the steadfastness of their hearts, the purity of their motives, the praiseworthiness of their deeds, and the excellence of their conduct. And still, Baha'u'llah had told nobody of his vision of the Maid of Heaven years earlier down in the Black Pit. He told nobody who he really was, but he kept assuring people that when the time was right, the Bab's promise would be fulfilled. Him whom God will make manifest would appear. And those words that the maiden had spoken to him down as he lay in chains in the Black Pit were always there, like an echo reverberating through his mind. Verily, we shall render thee victorious by thyself and by thy pen. And so Baha'u'llah picked up his pen and he began to produce what can only be described as an ocean of writings, of books and letters and poems and prayers and answers to people's questions and insights into the social discourses of the day. And day and night, these words poured out of Baha'u'llah into volumes and volumes and pages and pages. And Abdul Baha, his teenage son, would often sit with him in the room transcribing as his father dictated. And these writings of Baha'u'llah flowed out from that house, not only to his fellow Babis, but outwards across the city into the lives of the people of Baghdad. And the local politicians in Baghdad became fascinated by the changes that they were witnessing in the behavior of their citizens. Even the governor of Baghdad himself became enamored by this so-called criminal who had been dumped in his city, despised and rejected by his homeland. And over the following 7 years after Baha'u'llah's return from the wilderness, Baghdad witnessed this steadily rising crescendo of public prestige surging around Baha'u'llah. People from every strata of society, merchants, farmers, philosophers, politicians, religious leaders, artists, poets, even princes from around the empire began flocking to Baghdad to witness how this city was just becoming electrified through the influence of this man who, to everyone's knowledge, was nothing more than a humble follower of the Bab. And yet it seemed as if he was, through his actions in the city and the influence of his writings, he was accomplishing what throughout history had always been considered as the impossible task. He was uniting people who for thousands of years had seen each other as enemies. And he was bringing about a fundamental shift in people's perception of each other. He was teaching people, for example, that when, say, a Jew loves Moses, what they really love is the spiritual beauty of Moses. When a Christian loves Jesus, what they love is the spiritual beauty of Jesus. When a Muslim loves Muhammad, what they love is the spiritual beauty of Muhammad. The same goes for a Buddhist's love for Buddha, or a Hindu's love for Krishna, or a Zoroastrian's love for Zoroaster. And in the words of his son Abdul Baha, he was teaching people that one must love the light in whatever lamp it shines. And by directing people's minds towards the spiritual beauty at the heart of all of the world's great religions, he was creating harmony between the people. In his own words, he was teaching people to consort with the followers of all religions in a spirit of friendliness and fellowship. And so I thought I would just share with you a passage from Baha'u'llah's writings, which I think is a really beautiful example of the kinds of things that he was teaching people, and how through his writings and through his interactions with the people, essentially what he was doing was he was drawing out the spiritual beauty in the people themselves. So, Antimo, would you put up the next slide, please? So he wrote, "Be generous in prosperity and thankful in adversity. Be worthy of the trust of thy neighbour, and look upon him with a bright and friendly face. Be a treasure to the poor, an admonisher to the rich, an answerer of the cry of the needy, a preserver of the sanctity of thy pledge. Be fair in thy judgment, and guarded in thy speech. Be unjust to no man, and show all meekness to all men. Be as a lamp unto them that walk in darkness, a joy to the sorrowful, a haven for the distressed, an upholder and defender of the victim of oppression. Let integrity and uprightness distinguish all thine acts. Be a home for the stranger, a balm to the suffering, a tower of strength for the fugitive. Be eyes to the blind, and a guiding light unto the feet of the erring. Be an ornament to the countenance of truth, a crown to the brow of fidelity, a pillar of the temple of righteousness, a breath of life to the body of mankind, an ensign of the hosts of justice, a luminary above the horizon of virtue, a dew to the soil of the human heart, an ark on the ocean of knowledge, a sun in the heaven of bounty, a gem on the diadem of wisdom, a shining light in the firmament of thy generation, a fruit upon the tree of humility." And so after 7 years of ceaseless efforts pouring out this ocean of wisdom and guidance, following his return from the wilderness, Baha'u'llah had not only brought his fellow Babis back to life, but he had transformed the entire city, and Baghdad had become illumined like no other place on earth. And I think that this 7-year period following his return from the wilderness really highlights this theme that I mentioned a few episodes back, this theme of attraction to beauty. Because I think that really there's no force in the world more powerful than attraction to beauty. Because, we fall in love with what we find beautiful. And, when you fall in love, you become energized. You become you feel unstoppable. And, if you ever try to talk to someone who's in love and try to talk them out of pursuing relentlessly their beloved, forget about it. And the more beautiful the object of one's love, the more energized one becomes. And I think in a way, Baha'u'llah was in love with the beauty of what he saw in his revelation. And the poet Rumi once said, "You become what you love." And so in a way, I think Baha'u'llah himself was a reflection of the thing that he loved. Like a mirror reflecting the light of the sun and shining that light into the world. And the maid of heaven that he saw in his vision was actually the spiritual beauty that was in his own heart. And so today I'd like to sing for you a poem that Baha'u'llah wrote in tribute to this maiden that symbolized the beauty of his revelation. So if you're fasting today, I wish you a very good fast, and I hope you'll join me tomorrow for day 9 of A Story of Light. This piece is called The Tablet of the Wondrous Maiden. The hallowed beauty shone, resplendent from behind the veil. How wondrous a thing, how wondrous indeed. And lo, the flame of rapture caused all souls to swoon away, to swoon away. How wondrous is this, how wondrous indeed. Rising up, they soared unto the blessed pavilion, 'neath the throne of heaven's canopy. How wondrous a mystery, how wondrous indeed. Say the maiden of eternity unveiled her face. May her wondrous beauty be exalted indeed, shedding forth from earth to heaven its resplendent rays. How wondrous a light, how wondrous indeed. A lightning glance she cast, as piercing as a shooting star. How wondrous her glance, how wondrous indeed. A glance consuming every name and every title in its flames. How wondrous a feat, how wondrous indeed. To the dwellers of the realm of dust she turned her gaze. How wondrous her gaze, how wondrous indeed. And then did all creation shake and pass away. How astounding a death, how astounding indeed. Ooh, 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 ooh. She then let fall a raven lock, an ornament of spirit, in the darkest night. How wondrous a hue, how wondrous indeed, from which the fragrant breezes of the Spirit were perceived. How wondrous a scent, how wondrous indeed. In her right hand she bore the ruby wine, and in her left a portion of the finest fare. How wondrous a grace, how wondrous indeed. With hands encrimsoned with her ardent lover's blood, how wondrous is this, how wondrous indeed. In cups and chalices she passed around the wine of life. How wondrous a draught, how wondrous indeed. With harp and lute she sang in praise of her beloved. How wondrous a song, how wondrous indeed. Whereat the hearts were melted in consuming flames. How wondrous a love, how wondrous indeed. Of her sustaining beauty she bestowed a boundless share. How wondrous a share, how wondrous indeed. Then brought her sword of charm upon her lover's necks. How wondrous a blow, how wondrous indeed. Her pearl-like teeth did flash no sooner had she smiled. How wondrous a pearl, how wondrous indeed. Whereat the hearts of them that know cried out and wept. How wondrous a piety, how wondrous indeed. But they that doubt and boast of self denied her truth. How astounding a denial, how astounding indeed. And hearing this in sorrow, she repaired to her abode. How astounding her grief, how astounding indeed. She returned from whence she came. How lofty were the steps she traced. How astounding a decree, how astounding indeed. She cried a cry of anguish as to reduce all things to naught. How astounding her woe, how astounding indeed. And from her lips there streamed these words of warning and rebuke. How astounding a stream, how astounding indeed. Why do ye gainsay me, O people of the book? How astounding a lie, how astounding indeed. Ooh, 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 oh, my friends, she said, we shall not come again. How wondrous a return, how wondrous indeed. But we'll conceal God's secrets in His scriptures and His books, as bidden by one mighty and bounteous indeed. Nor shall ye find me till the promised one appear on Judgment Day. On Judgment Day. By my life, how astounding an abasement, how astounding an abasement, how astounding, how astounding.